What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Brave and Faithful podcast. I'm your host, Redden Dionisio. Today, I have a Marine veteran. He is also an author of the O3 series. I have none other than Christopher Bass. What's going on, Christopher?
Hey, how's it going? Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, appreciate you for taking the time. So before we get started and talk about what your books here, I got one of them. um, So tell us a little bit about your service, your time in the Marine Corps.
Okay, yeah, so service is uh, rather unspectacular. I enlisted in 2009, right after high school, Marine Corps Infantry. I
Okay.
just absolutely wanted to be in 0311. Um, was in from 2009 to 2013. Was with 1st Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. I was a scout with them, and then deployed to Afghanistan in 2000. That was 2010, and then the second one was 2011 to 12. And then after, during my second deployment, I wanted to continue my military service, but I had a daughter born while I was overseas, and so it kind of just ended up realizing I wanted to being with my family was a little more important. So being with my kids. So did not continue that career path, and yeah, here I am.
So I kind of feel you in that situation. I didn't really get married until later in my career because, obviously during those times, deployments, they can be rough on a family. And I saw it firsthand from some of my Marines and sailors. So, um,
Yeah, yeah. The my hats off to anyone that's serving and deploys. Especially with kids.
yeah.
At the time, I was married on my second deployment. Um, that wasn't really a big deal, but it was when my kid was born. It was like a real eye opener and a big change for me. So the guys that keep doing it, man, my hat's off and biggest appreciations for.
Definitely, definitely. All right. So you served in the Marine Corps. How was your transition out of the service, and what kind of led you to, become a writer, an author?
So I always wanted to be a writer. Like ever since being a little kid, um, I just always wanted to tell stories. I've always wanted to create new worlds and create these things that people can kind of get lost in for a little bit. And I it's just something I always wanted to do as well as kind of being in the military. And so those it kind of just came hand in hand for me. As far as transitioning, that was rather smooth. I luckily had around the 2013 timeframe. Um, it was getting a little bit better working with the VA system. There was a lot more guidance, so I was able to like knock out my VA stuff immediately. Um, Transitioning was actually fairly smooth for me.
Okay.
Uh, there was some family issue stuff, but that was a completely different thing that I don't really attribute to the military. But as yeah, pretty smooth for me, luckily.
And so, what kind of, you said you mentioned you've always kind of wanted to be a writer. Um, like, did you like start writing as soon as you got out, or like, how did this like O3 series, like, how did that all start?
So I was I was writing like in high school, and I
Okay.
was writing stuff that was not good at all.
What are you
I
writing
was
about?
I was writing about stuff I had no idea I should be writing about. I was trying to write like science fiction, some military stuff, some like historical fiction, and then it's just like thank God no one can ever see those again. I was trying to write when I was in like on deployments, which is interesting experience too. And I wrote some stuff there. Those luckily won't see the light of day either. So I've just always been trying to write, and yeah.
So like, did you join like competitions or anything like that? Like just to get
No,
some recognition
no.
or?
I was doing a lot of writing just for myself. It was one of those things I kind of understood that like your first thing was not going to be good. And it was one of those things where it's kind of like just was writing with a purpose, but also with the idea of like this is all practice for me
Yeah.
to help get to where I am now. And even the stuff I have now is still like stuff to build on. Um, but I was writing all different. I was trying to do all different things from short stories to poems to novels, even screenplays I had wrote. And one small bragging point, one almost got produced by a small indie film company, but that never panned out. But so I was just constantly trying to write and explore different stuff. It became very clear to me I needed to stick to what I know and what I was familiar with, and that was the military. So it became a lot of military writing.
Yeah. So that, I mean, that became your niche because obviously you had experience in that
Yeah,
field.
yeah.
So, okay. So was there anything that you took from the service that's kind of like helped you with becoming like a writer?
In terms of becoming like a writer, I mean, there's a lot of things for me that I obviously use just from personal interactions and experiences. But in terms of like kind of being in the right mind frame of, wanting to become a writer, I think the main thing was, I guess, having the mindset that I am never, I'm, I'm always a beginner. I'm always learning.
Right.
And there's always someone out there with more and better experience that you can learn from. And just because you put something out doesn't mean everything's good. And so, like, because every time you go to a new class or a new schoolhouse or whatever that thing is, you kind of quickly realize that you need to be willing to learn to excel in those classes, or to even just not get messed with by whatever sergeants or staff sergeants are leading it, right?
Yeah.
Um, so just kind of that humility of knowing that I need to always be learning, and I need to always just keep an open mind of everything. And it doesn't matter if someone I've written, hundreds of thousands of words, and someone's only written 10, they might have a good point, and then to take that point with open arms. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point that you bring up. It's about just being humble and staying humble and being open to, like you said, just learning from anybody that has a valid point or that might be able to help you in your writing, in your career, whatever that may be. So, all
yeah, yeah.
right, guys. So if you're just joining us, talking to Christopher Bast, author of the O3 series. So Chris, so what would you say was been the most rewarding experience or moment since you started your second service?
That would definitely be interaction with readers, and more specifically, interactions with readers uh, that I'm writing about. So in your example, a corpsman, and then I
Yeah.
wrote 8404, and you saying you like it, those are the most rewarding for me, because even though, yes, I've interacted with corpsmen or mortarmen or machine gunners or scout snipers, all that, um, there's always, like, I'm still always going to be an outsider to your tribe, right? Like, even though we Marines and corpsmen work together, our lingo will differentiate significantly from another corpsman to another corpsman, or another mortarman to another mortarman,
All right.
right? Like, you can always tell who's the outsider. And so when the guys in those MOSs read the books and they identify with it, and they like it, um, to me, that's the most rewarding, because then I've hopefully done a good job in trying to tell a compelling story about that MOS or about people that are in that MOS doing that job and some of the everyday experiences they have to go through while they're doing that job. So,
Do you
yeah.
feel some sort of like validation, like whenever you hear like, "Man, great job," or like, "I enjoyed reading your
Yeah,
book."
yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Definitely. But then more of just not so much like self-love validation, but also just knowing that like hopefully what I've written has kind of brought some light and some honor and some respect to the people that are doing these different combat MOSs. So yeah.
All right. And so for those of you guys who might not know, so like I mentioned earlier, 8404, um, one of the books that Chris wrote um, in recognition of the corpsmen, especially the corpsmen with the Marines. So appreciate you, Chris, for uh, highlighting our corpsman rating.
Yeah, man. Definitely got to have love for our Devil Docs.
So we were talking about this before we went live. Right now you're writing number 10, you said, and you guys are
yes,
planning to do 12.
we're planning on going to 12.
Okay.
Yeah. So luckily with each, for those that are unfamiliar, the O3 series is a collection of military short fiction based off of the United States Marine Corps' military occupational specialties around combat, around the infantry guys. And so each book is dedicated to an MOS, and then each book is a standalone. So you don't have to read the other books to kind of get the full flavor of that MOS or that story.
Yeah.
But then if you read them all together, in whichever order you want, they tell an overall story of this fictional combat outpost, Cop Javelin, in Afghanistan, and kind of the overall story progression of what's happening in that area.
So it's basically like in talked about a deployment in one area, just with different
Yeah,
stories of
yeah,
characters.
with different characters, an unnamed. I never really even named like completely where Cop Javelin is or what unit is
Right.
there, just to help like any reader, any Marine, any soldier, sailor, airman that is reading it to kind of identify a little more with it. They don't have to have like, oh, this is 2-5 and
Right.
or whatever. So
It's a lot more
yeah,
relatable.
yeah. So the ambiguity helps it, I think, become more relatable. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, definitely for me, like reading the book 8404, the corpsman is Filipino and I'm Filipino. So
Yeah, yeah. That was a detail that kind of had to be done, right?
right.
Like, I think out of all the corpsmen I've had, I think only 2 were not Filipino. Uh, so,
Yeah.
and even the one of the guys I was talking to, a great buddy of mine named Mark Karian, he was a corpsman and he was kind of helping me do some of the pieces, also Filipino. So it was just one of those things. Like, all right, it's got to be done.
It's got to be there.
Yeah.
All right. So, Chris, next question. So, can you give our audience an actionable step that they can take right now in pursuit of their second service?
So I would say, as cliche as it sounds, is just to do it, right? As along with being with that mind frame of humility and always wanting to learn and always accepting lessons, but just you got to start. I mean, like I said, I wanted to be a writer this ever since I was in middle school, I think. Uh, and I got out of the military in 2013, and my first book came out in 2018, I think. I want to say it's 2018. I could be wrong. I forgot. And that's just because like I kept just hoping and waiting, and it was just like this is not doing anything for me. So I'm gonna just do this, and that's what I did. So yeah, you just got to take that leap of faith.
Yes, like with anything, it doesn't come overnight, and like what you've been doing pretty much your whole life, you've been practicing your whole life, and it's led you to where you are today, and that's a great advice there. It's just do it, just start, whatever that
Yeah.
is. So, all right, so Chris, so one last question here before we go to our second segment. What's one thing you want our audience to take away from this episode?
Uh, so it's something that we haven't necessarily touched on, but it's just something I've noticed when I started doing this, and even when I was in the military, was um, so many of our veterans out there are just some of the most creative minds I've ever seen, and they're just from art, drawing, music, uh, poetry, literature. There's just, I don't know what it is about people that decide to join the military, but I think there's a part of you that knows that you're in an occupation where you might have to destroy. So the urge to create
Yeah.
blossoms. And I think that there is just this untapped resource of veteran creativity that could definitely be brought more into light and would just expand, veteran culture and just expand some of our own arts. So hopefully, my hope is that people will take more time to look around and find those people.
Awesome message, man. All right, so Chris, this is our second segment of the podcast where I asked my guests the same 5 questions. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. So first question: what's one hobby you enjoy?
So here's where I have to admit I'm a pretty big nerd. I like to airsoft, and I'm uh I'm a cadre for a event host called Milsim West, and we hold 40-hour military simulation events for people that want to take their airsofting experience to the next level. Where we have like once you're on the field, you're on the field for 40 hours. We have blank fires, we have pyro. What you bring in your ruck is what you have for the field. So you have to create bivouac areas, and while you're in your bivouac areas, you have to hold security overnight, or else you'll get hit in a night raid. So I love doing that.
Is this all
uh,
like nationwide or like?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is actually international too, because Muslim West holds events in South America as well.
Okay.
Uh, but yeah, we do them nationwide. We've got one event coming up in February that's in Clovis, California, that I'm actually the CO of the Russian forces. And then our next event, I believe, is in April in West Virginia, Planthera, and I'll be there as well. But yeah, we do events. We do, like, on average, I believe 9 events a year, and all around the United States, and outside the United States too, if you're so fortunate enough to do that or be in those areas. Um, so I do that, and then even bigger nerd, I like to play a lot of Warhammer. A lot of the nerdy fucking models that you see. Sorry, I'm not sure if you can curse on this, but
No,
those
you're good.
nerdy models that you can build and paint, and then you play on your tabletop with like dice and measuring uh, measuring tape. So I do a lot of that.
Okay. And then you have a kid, right? You're
I have two
two
little
kids.
girls.
Okay.
Yes. Um, so we do, man, they have so much energy. It's hard to list off what all they do, but we'll just do everything from like the painting to the drawing to building to uh yeah. So they keep me busy. They keep me fairly busy as well. And luckily I have an amazing fiance that helps me out with all that. So yeah.
Man, I got another girl. I got a girl right now and another one on the way. So I can't
Uh,
wait for that.
good
Um,
luck.
All right. So next question, Chris. If you had to choose one person, dead or living, to hang out with for one day, who would it be and why?
So this one is always a hard one for me because there's a lot of people I want to meet. And I think ultimately I just want to meet these people, these all these creatives that have just went out and built these worlds that people just get lost in, from from Tolkien to even George Lucas, who's built the whole Star Wars franchise.
All
And
right.
like his brain has just created so much that people just get lost, like literally lost in it. And they're so passionate about it. And even from like Lord of the Rings or from Game of Thrones, and all these other worlds that are out there, I just wish I could sit down and talk to them. Like, all right, so how did you build this? How did you
Right.
create this? Like, were you even thinking, when you presented this first thing, were you even thinking the backstory of all these other characters, or just the lore that you've developed? So any creative that's just built worlds, I just want to sit down and talk to them and pick their brains.
Yeah, it's definitely fascinating. I mean, when Game of Thrones was out, my wife and I were like just hardcore Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones fans. But yeah, that'd be a great talk to have, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, next question, Chris. Recommend a book for our audience to read.
So I will not do a shameless plug, but I'll actually call out a couple books written by a good friend of mine, Michael Golembeski. He wrote Level Zero Heroes and Dagger 22. They're, I'm sure most of you are very familiar with it. If not, it's about MARSOC in Afghanistan, Marine Special Operations, and just their story in the I believe it was the Bala Murgap. I believe that's what it was.
Okay.
Area. And he just writes just a fantastic story about what happened there and about the people that were there, and it's just a wonderful eye opener into the world of Marine Special Operations. And uh, I know Ski personally. He's a great guy. He's just a friendly dude, and yeah. So I can't recommend his two books enough. I'd also recommend another friend of mine, Paul Martinez. He wrote "When the Killer Man Comes." It's about his time with Ranger Battalion. I forgot which one. Sorry, man. But he was in one of the battalions with regiment, and it's his time as a sniper in
Okay.
Afghanistan. His book is also very eye-opening and very personal, and he's also tried to help me out a lot with my own writing, so I really appreciate him for doing that and taking his time. So yeah, I recommend those three. I mean, there's tons more. The Last Run by Leonard B. Scott is about uh, LERP patrols in Vietnam, and that's kind of what really inspired me as a kid. So yeah,
So you said Level Zero, Heroes, Dagger 22, and The Killer
when, when the Killer Man
When the
Comes.
Killer
Yeah.
Man Comes. Okay. All right. So next question. What's your favorite quote and why?
So this ties into my nerd hobby again, but it's this quote that first I found it through one of my sergeants. He had it written in his green notepad, and it
Okay.
was, "Hope is the first step on the road to disappointment." And I thought that was so like grim, dark, and humorous that it was just perfect for Marines. On like, I hope this patrol isn't that long. Well, it's going to be a long
It's
one.
gonna be a
Yeah, right. Like, I
yeah.
hope you get off early. Nope, you're
No.
going to be there till 22. I hope it doesn't rain on the field op, and it fucking rains. So hope is the first step on the road to disappointment is probably my favorite quote, and it's from uh, Warhammer 40,000. So yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I've never heard that quote, but I mean, it definitely
it's
resonates
just so
because it
like
makes sense.
dark humor about it that I love
Yeah.
it. Uh, so
All right.
yeah.
So, Chris, next question. Where do you see yourself in a year, 5 years, or even 10 years from now?
So in a year, the O3 series will be done. That's my goal, is to just
Okay.
finally get it done and over with, so I can move on to other projects. In 5 years, I want to have a full length novel out. And in 10 years, hopefully I have more novels out. And I don't know, man. Like I said in the thing, I want to be fat, happy, sipping drinks on the beach.
And hopefully, other than the books and stuff, we'll see your work out there in other arts, other form of arts.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Well, Chris, I appreciate you for taking the time, man. Like I said, make sure for those of you guys listening in, make sure you guys check out the O3 series. Support another veteran who's doing great things out there. Chris, one last thing, where can our audience stay in touch with you?
So I'm on Facebook. You can find me on my page, Christopher Bast. And
Okay.
then, excuse me, I'm on Instagram, Chris period Hollywood period Bast. Um, and you'll find a bunch of my like me posting nerd hobby stuff there too, along with my writing. So yeah, you can find me on those two platforms.
Awesome. Awesome. Again, Chris, thanks for the time. And for those of you guys listening, make sure you guys go check out and support Chris and his work. Till then, we'll see you guys soon.
Hey, thanks very much, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.